Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining us today. This is going to be part 2 of my conversation with Christian Sundberg and Akerke Muratova about our pre-birth memories. And today we're going to be talking about why the veil is necessary and why anybody would come to Earth to suffer. You will find part 1 linked in the description, as well as part 3 when it becomes available. You'll also find links and information on both of my guests in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Here's Akerke and Christian. So question 3, this question came from Christian, and it's, why is the veil necessary? I love this question so much. Christian, did you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so this segues well with what we just described. So if we're here to participate in this context, in order to do that, you have to be from the perspective of the context. Like, I know that sounds so simple, but if you want to be the human, you got to be the human, man. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta be the human. If you want a rubber meets the road expansion of being, then that being needs to actually be the character. Like, when we get back to the other side, I don't want to pigeonhole this, but we could say, this is silly, I'm being a little bit silly, but it's true. We could say, I was that person. I did that. I experienced going to the bathroom. I understand nausea or whatever aspect of the human experience we're talking about. I was that. It's not that I was the universe that did that. I was a human. I mean, you are the universe doing it. I'm just saying that in order to have the experience from this perspective, it means that you must be veiled from the fullness of what you really are. That's the simplest way to put it. Because, and then there's some other reasons too. One is it prevents really painful homesickness, because if you remembered consciously the fullness and the beauty of life in the higher realms, you would not be able to, I mean, at least this is how I feel. You wouldn't be able to go to work in the morning or like get anything done or do anything or think any normal human thoughts, because the desire to return to that could be overwhelming and overpowering. And also, similarly, the veil prevents distraction. It sounds simple, but there's this practical element. If you want to be the human, you got and focus only on the human stuff. You can't, it's beneficial to not have full conscious access to all the other reality systems and all the other portions of the self. So one other comment I'll add is that the veil is actually additive. So I know that we think of the veil as a reductive process. Okay, so I acknowledge that there is a reduction in the access to the full knowing of our true higher nature. That's the name of the game. It's like the very name of the game. But there is this incredible addition, an expansion of the self through a new personality. It's the same self. So like if you have multiple experiences, multiple lifetimes, it's not different beings. It's you. You're doing this one day and this the other day. You're having this walk this day and this walk this day. They're still you. They might be a woman this life and a man this life. No big deal. You're just experiencing these different experiences. But the additive thing then is that you get to be that new perspective, and you can be it from a place that is I want to be careful about the language here, but basically uncontaminated by patterns from previous experiences. Now, we do still carry certain patterns with us at the soul level from experience to experience. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, if a previous personality had a certain pattern that it got wrapped within for a lifetime, maybe an ego pattern or something, then a new lifetime, a new veiled experience is a fresh start. It's a new opportunity to create something new and to start from a new perspective, like a new addition, a new canvas maybe, or something. So I guess that's, I mean, I could go on for a long time about the veil. I'm passionate about this topic, but I think that's like at a super high level. It allows us to have the limited experience of being the human personality, because if you weren't the veiled human, you'd be the larger you. And that's not what we're here to experience. We're here to experience being you, the human.
Thank you, Christian. Akerke, do you want to go?
Well, I just want to say, I have my notes here, and I wrote exactly the same as Christian described, but probably much more. I would say he described it very well. The things that I was trying to like express and explain, and I completely agree that I believe this veil was necessary because I I remember at some point I was so desperate to know about my past lives, or like if I had any, and that was like distracting me from having this character's life expanded and experiencing and having the joy in the present moment. So, and I remember thinking about my pre-birth memory, and I thought, why don't I remember more? Like, why don't I remember you know, the beauty that everyone's been describing? Like, I only remember the part where I was about to jump into this life. And I thought about it. I think with the life I had and the challenges I had, if I remembered that beauty, I would probably not want to live this life at all. I would just say, oh, okay, let's cancel this life, all right? Um, I am voiding my contract or something like that. So I think that was the reason for, I think our soul decided, in order to have this individual experience, this full experience, the new, entirely new form, and the new, in order to create a new world in the form of a new character, we had to erase the memory of who we are and where we came from. And that's also part of our nature, our curiosity to expand. That was the
Exactly.
drive in that choice. So I think that was it. And as well as, I also felt this huge relief when I got out of my body and I remembered who I am. But at the same time, I also remembered that I was doing my best to not forget who I am. And I was doing my best to remember my pre-birth memory my entire human life, because that was the purpose I set before coming here. For some reason, I said, I want to remember that. And there was this purpose linked to it. And it was raising the vibration, and it was helping the earth. And it was because I felt like it was supposed to be a fun experience. It was supposed to be fun life for everybody, to have this separation and enjoy everything. But it turned out it was going into another direction where people were, I would say, they were too caught up and too attached to the ego, to the beliefs, to the system. So they completely forgotten the fun of who we are and the true nature. So I was like, oh, I did my best. I succeeded. I remembered that little portion of my memory. Good job. So I think that was a fun part. But then again, at that point where I got out, I was getting this download of information about the purpose and what's gonna happen and what's going on, or like everything at once, because it was all happening simultaneously, like everything. And there was this moment where the veil was lifting up, because the vibration was going up and up. The earth was shifting and new souls were coming, including me, including you. The volunteering souls were coming. And right now we're experiencing this major awakening around. And some babies, some souls, they do remember everything fully. They came with purpose. Even if they don't remember, they have this, some people, they have this sense of responsibility, urge to help, urge of knowing the purpose. For some reason, they know they're not interested in afterlife or anything, but they know they have this purpose of helping. And I feel like the veil just is slowly lifting up, and it's making it easier for the volunteers to jump in and help others to remember that it's fun. Actually, it is you were not supposed to be attached to this. This was what you actually wanted. This was actually what you wanted to experience, and you can change it. You can flip the table however you want. You can change it. And I think I would say that the veil was necessary in the beginning. Right now, I think it is questionable because I don't know what's happening, but there are so many souls that are coming, that so many babies, they remember their past lives, they remember the purpose, they remember the universe, the planets they've been before, things like that. So I think it's slowly lifting up, and I think we all see the changes in our bodies as well. We are becoming lighter. I certainly feel that, and I see my surrounding. I see some people that are going through changes and some sort of a transformation, but they don't know it yet. But as an observer, you observe it, and I think, wow, this is happening, and this is the evidence. And you and Melissa and me, the evidence that we could remember, we could have that pre-birth memory. We kept holding on to that for some reason, and there is a purpose for that. And I feel like the veil, I think it's questionable. Will it stay? I don't know. I feel like if the earth keeps changing at its speed as it's now, and it's going to get better and better, and people are going to remember, and the generation is going to teach another generation about the nature of who we are, about the unconditional love and the universal energy, then the veil is not going to be this negatively looked thing. I think we would look at it positively. And who knows, what if the veil will lift up entirely? If we all start remembering and teaching our generation, the next generation, about who we are and the true nature of the energy vibrations, and the generation here, we will teach other souls that are coming about the fun. So it's not going to be a problem like most people look at it as. I think that's how I would approach it.
Well, I just love what both of you said, and both of you brought up such great points. And I'm kind of glad that I went last this time, because I want to respond to both of you. I would agree with what both of you said, that if you're going to be a human, then you have to be a human. And I would say the purpose of the veil, at least from my understanding, is to block us from knowing, remembering our previous life, our previous existence, or experiencing the truth of who we are as part of the source and of everything that exists. And for me, I can say the veil is completely solid in the fact that I don't feel that oneness. Naturally, I don't feel or experience that connection. As far as the knowing and remembering, just having that little bit of a memory of what I was before this has been enough to make it really hard to integrate here. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into this a little bit more in one of the other questions that's more directly related to it. The harshness of the world, both the physical barriers and the mental barriers, and having to learn language, which just seems so clumsy and slow, and not feeling the connection that I can't feel, but that I can remember. I feel like I am not as fully into the human character as I would have been. And that's okay. I mean, I think that I knew it was going to be that way, but I think that's why the veil is necessary from a broader perspective as to why is the veil necessary. Another thought I have about this is that the veil is necessary to create the environment that we want to have here. And I've heard this from a number of sources, from Dolores Cannon, from Mike Such, who is a near-death experience researcher, and also from a couple of channeled sources, that Earth is the only what they call free will planet, and that there can only be one free will planet at a time. And my understanding of what they mean by free will is not that in other planets or realms that you would be controlled against your will, but simply that the only choice that there is in other places is love. Because in other planets and other dimensions, we live in complete knowledge and awareness of who we are. But here on Earth, we have the choice between love and then the illusion of the opposite of love. And we come here specifically to have that experience. And the veil, which cuts us off from the knowledge of who we are, makes those conditions, creates those conditions, and gives us the circumstances that we need to have that very unique experience. And adding to what Akerke was saying about, is the veil always going to be necessary, and is it starting to lift? I've had those same thoughts as well, because now again, this is coming from a limited perspective. This is coming from the perspective of where we are right now, which is inside of time. And we perceive ourselves and the Earth as being in this evolution, and that's the story that we're participating in. But from this perspective, Earth, being the free will planet, is evolving, undergoing this experiment to see how far away from our source can we get and still remember that we are love, and then going down into the depths of that darkness and then rising back up into the light. And I think that as we evolve from our perspective here, we're evolving, and as the Earth evolves, that the veil will become less and less necessary. According to my understanding, we'll reach a place where we are no longer the planet of contrast here, that we've gone through that process, undergone that test, so to speak, and then we come out the other side and we become a planet of peace and harmony, where we are living in full knowledge of our true nature. But I mean, it's all part of the experience. To get to that point, we have to go through the contrast so that we can then say, like Christian was saying in the last question we talked about, look, I was that human. I experienced that darkness. I did that. And now here we are.
Thank you, Melissa. I resonate very much with that. I was just going to say about what you just said there, that as the temperature of the water rises, and that means as the vibration of the collective consciousness of humanity increases, that as we process fears and grow towards love and grow up, as we do that, the distance decreases. The distance between there and here, source and where we are way out here reduces. And as that distance decreases, our proximity to our higher nature increases naturally. So, the veil is just a part of the limitation set, the constraint set that we wear in order to have this experience. But as the collective consciousness shifts, therefore, so will our closeness to our higher natures, and our awareness will increase. And more will become consciously aware of, portions of the self. That's just natural. So I agree with that. I just want to make one other quick comment about the veil before we move off the veil question. And this is super simple, but it came to mind as a meaningful thing. The veil permits the experience of novelty. So like when you bite into a chocolate cake, for me, it's gluten-free chocolate cake. When you bite into that, you have an experience that is informative. You have sensory data arrive to you that you're not sure what it will taste like. And then when it arrives, it's new. It's something you process. There is absolutely sensory experience, very much so in other reality systems, but there can be a lack of that certain novelty because we are connected to all things and we have a knowing of it. I don't know how else to describe this. So there's an opportunity for novelty in a system where you don't have visibility of what will happen and what things will be like to experience them.
Oh, great point. I hadn't thought about that one. So question number 4, this is also Christian's question. The world is full of so much suffering. Why would anyone voluntarily agree to come to this place? And I get this question all the time as well.
I think all of these questions that you've named so far, I also get a lot. So I think this is a great list. Yeah. So this one is a delicate question because the world is full of extremely hurt people. And I am not making light of the incredible suffering that occurs and the incredible fear that we have that rises up out of the limitations and stories that we've bought into while human. So I'm not making light of that as I comment on this. Okay, so it's not about suffering. Like it's not about signing up because suffering is good. It's not like that. It's that contrast is useful. And if we are to commit into a context in which choice making that is fear-based can occur, and by the way, that kind of relates to what you were saying about free will. I would slightly qualify just from my own perspective that we always have free will. It's just that the reality system we're engaged in permits a different set of choices. And so there are a set of choices that are possible here that aren't possible in other reality systems because we are experiencing separation. And so because we're experiencing an extremely non-native state of separation, fear can arise. And fear arises because we buy into perceptions that are not in alignment with the truth of who we are. So we buy into perceptions like I'm powerless or I am unworthy of love. Oh my gosh. Like how many people experience that from the moment they're born? You know what I mean? Like throughout our childhood, we get conditioned deeply. I don't mean to laugh. It's just amazing how lost we become in these negative self-perceptions, and they prompt fear. And then the ego arises mightily to try to address the fear, to try to fix this huge problem, this huge hole that exists now. So why would we voluntarily come into a place where such a hole can happen, where so much pain can arise? Well, the greater the distance, the greater the opportunity. And we see from that perspective that the fundamental truth, the absolutely rock hard, truer than true truth is unconditional love, eternal freedom and joy. It cannot be overcome. It is deeper than the deepest sorrow and suffering. We know that about ourselves in an incredibly real, tangible way. And it is actually quite miraculous that from here, from the human perspective, we have lost sight of it. But it is nonetheless the rock bed of creation. That love, that freedom is the rock bed that has given rise to all these experiences. And we see that, and it's from knowing the truth of that and knowing the absolute survivability and unconquerability of that true nature that we then take the incredibly brave, curious, creative choice to really engage in some serious contrast for the expansion of love and joy. So it is about the opportunity, not about the suffering. Once we're here, of course, we have a lot of fear. And where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of suffering. Fear is the primary source of the suffering. It's that we apply meaning, negative meaning to our lives, and we hurt others because of our own egoic responses, and we're hurting each other. A lot of people come in and we blame the world. Like this universe is terrible. How can God allow this? And the ego protests mightily. We rise up our fists and we feel very justified in our complaint. I'm not making light of that, but we are the problem. Like what I mean is each one of us, our fear is the problem. It's not really the neutral constraint set that's high constraint. We're in a very high constraint reality system, but it's neutral. We are bringing our fear into the situation and hurting each other to all over the place. So the question is, can we move past that? Can we grow and integrate experience so much that we overcome that fear? And so that even in this context, we can shine love to each other, compassion, caring, understanding, patience. Can we do that even in the small ways? Can we grow as individual beings? It's not just about the product of some action. It's about growing who we really are.
Akerke, do you want to go next?
Sure. So the world is full of suffering. Why would anyone voluntarily agree to come to this place? And I think Christian explained it very, very well in terms of putting things into words. But, you know, we look at it in this limited way, in this limited perception, and it's so much more than that we can think of consciously and we can imagine. And we'll probably never find out in these human forms that we are at right now the true answer, that ultimate answer that we need. But I think because we are the universe, we are this whole giant pure consciousness, and we are one. And even the word, the we, it means that you are separate, you and I, and that creates the we. But that doesn't even explain that we are just one, a whole being. And as that pure consciousness, we are expanding and we are creating. And when we expand and create, I believe that we start co-creating. From what I've experienced when I felt everything, when I was on the other side, I had, and I came back and I had this hard time of drawing the line between bad and good, wrong and right. For some time, I couldn't tell. I was sitting with my friends, they would talk about politics and things like, oh, these people are suffering, but this is wrong, and I couldn't draw the line because everything seemed like perfection. Everything was working out, everything was balancing each other out. And that was what I experienced on the other side. And I brought it here and I tried talking to my friends and explaining, but it's the perfection without the survival mode people were in. They wouldn't fully appreciate and even recognize the pure love, the pure joy without having that contrast. And I had like a lot of people, looking at me weirdly, like, what are you talking about? It's not perfect. But on that side, on the other side, you feel, because you are the universe and you created everything, you feel like everything, you feel that nurturing feeling, you feel that motherly love to everything, unconditional love, that you think it is perfect the way it is, and it's moving perfectly fine. And it's balancing, it's working things out, and it's expanding more and more and more. From that side where I looked at Earth. I didn't think, oh, they're suffering, this is bad. But I looked at it, oh, it's beautiful that's happening. But I felt a bit upset that they aren't having as much joy as they could, as we all could, because we forgot the magnificence, we forgot the power that we have that can change everything. And there are many stories of people who had challenges in their life, who suffered, and they transformed entirely, healed entirely. And that is the true evidence out here for us as a reminder, this is your power. On the other side, you have this expanded approach where you like very joyful, you love it, you're like, okay, I'm jumping in, it is fine, it's going to be fine, because it's temporarily, and it's for yourself, and you have that sense of responsibility as well. You love and responsibility and that nurturing nature to yourself, that you are in yourself, you are in your own creation, you are the universe, you are the creator of the world, you are the creator of everything, and you are connected to everything. So that you are always at your core, at your love, and you can come back to that. and it's a temporary thing. And before, I remember when I got out, this character's life seemed like a dream, and it was very short. It was so short. Like I I think I know, you know, on Earth I say I've made 24 around the sun, like 24 full circles around the sun. But then on the other side, when I was there with my mom, it all felt like it was just this joyful memory, just this distant memory. And if I wanted to think about it hard, I could remember the feelings attached to that memory, to that character, like, oh my God, she was having this experience. Oh wow. But I couldn't recall the every suffering she had, the moments. I was like, oh, her name was this. Oh my God, she thought her name was this and this. Oh wow. And that's all I could remember. And I was very happy about the experience, and I wanted to go back. And I was like, I'm going back. Oh, she has to remember how powerful she is. I'm going back. And I think every soul at our pure nature, that's how we feel about the earth. Like, oh, I'm going back. I'm going to have that. I want to have that experience. I'm going into the unknown. How exciting is that? Because you know everything. At the end of the day, you know everything, but you choose to erase, to have that experience of unknown and see how you can use your powers to create the world you want and the experience you want. So I think we choose it voluntarily because we are the love, we are the universe, we are the whole. So we are experiencing ourselves through this expansion, through this physical form, through this world. And even the earth was created by us. So we have that unexplainable love to it. So we come back to it, we go to it because we know, well, it's temporarily. And it is hard for us on the other side to draw the line, because you think you see beyond the limitations of human form we have, like beyond this mind where we see, oh, pain and pleasure, anger and joy, this and this. On the other side, you can't draw the line. It doesn't exist. So I think that's where we have that love and responsibility. So we come back voluntarily because we're doing it for ourselves.
That was
Wow.
beautiful.
Yeah, that was so well said and very inspiring and uplifting to me, listening to you describe that.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think we can like go on and about it. And I feel like there are many people like me who had these experiences. And, if we jump on this research to answer this question, I think we can go for like the infinity on Earth. But yeah, this is a shortly how I would put it. But it is hard to draw the line between the light and dark and pain and pleasure and anger and joy, because you have to experience it to be able to draw the line. So I think that's where we come to the physical on Earth, and we try to draw the line because that's what we like to do, and we like to control, organize everything, and try to find an explanation to everything. But on the other side, it seems perfect. Everything is perfect and beautiful.
I don't think what I have to say is going to be nearly as profound as what you just said, but I would just echo what you both said about this being a really sensitive topic. Why is the world full of so much suffering? And I get a lot of comments from people who have truly suffered, like people who live in war-torn countries, or there's a lady who comments pretty frequently who her son was murdered, and then will ask me, well, why, what's the point of that level of suffering? I never would have chose that. And so I'm always really sensitive if I'm talking to somebody, if you're watching this and you're somebody who has suffered to such a degree, I would never in a conversation with you tell you chose your suffering and this and that. I think the most important thing in that situation is to be compassionate and maybe to admit that I don't have all the answers. But speaking from my memory, specifically for myself, of why I chose to come to this life and what I remember about that, we may have different reasons why we come here. I think some people or some souls come, especially now, as volunteers to help the rest of us. I think a lot of us come to challenge ourselves and also to be part of something so absolutely magnificent that we can't necessarily see from this side of things. So, what it felt like to me when I was planning my life is this sort of the same way that it would feel in this life if I was signing up to take a double major at a college with like 5 AP classes, something that's going to really, really challenge me, but yet I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah.
And also an element of maybe why people will do things like run into burning buildings to say people are sign up to serve and risk their life in the military. So there's like this aspect of challenging yourself and being super excited about it, and also being willing to serve for the benefit of everybody else. And so that's personally what I remember. I remember that, and I can't remember the details of my purpose now, but I do remember knowing that it was what we are doing here is so absolutely magnificent, and that I was going to play an important role in that, and that it was going to be just indescribably beautiful. And I wanted so much to be a part of it. So yeah, I was really excited to come here. I chose it to challenge myself and to be of service. Another thing I wanted to echo that both of you touched on is that it's not so much that we're signing up to come here and suffer. It's that we're signing up to come here and be in certain situations in which we can suffer, but ultimately we can learn how to not suffer. And I know that sounds really insensitive to people who are suffering, and I don't mean it that way at all. But by putting ourselves in these situations, we can learn to connect to who we truly are and the underlying foundation of love and joy, and learn to express that and use the suffering that we experience to grow and expand that until eventually we stop suffering. Because I've heard several people say this, there's a difference between pain and suffering. And suffering is what we create in our minds and the story that we tell ourselves about the events that we experience.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually gonna comment on that too, Melissa. That's so beautiful, and it's also very sensitive to try to speak to. But and this sounds so insensitive, this sentence, but like I think it's important too. It's suffering until it's not. What I mean is, we experience deep suffering, but when we find the rock bed of what we are, it's not suffering. It's not that the suffering has true power or something. It's not even that it is suffering. It's even that when we feel pain is a sensation. It doesn't have that meaning put on it yet. And the masters among us, there are people that are so beautifully evolved that I don't know how to put it. It's not suffering anymore. It's knowing the depth of contrast in a beautiful way that is not suffering any longer.
Beautiful. Thank you both.